My name is Michail Stamatakis. I have been a member of the Thomas Young Center for several years now, ever since I joined UCL in 2012. And I think it's a great community, so I would like all of you to get involved and
sectional simulations. Here are perspective medical deviations behind the model.
Sorry, I hear something in the background. Okay. So what is the Thomas Young Center? It's an interdisciplinary alliance of more than 100 research groups at 4 London universities: Imperial College London, King's College London, UCL, and also Queen Mary University of London. It was founded in 2006, and its aim is to address the challenges of society and industry through the theory and simulation of materials and molecules. So this is what we're trying to do. It's all about simulating materials, but also developing methodologies in order to simulate or describe theoretically materials all the way from the molecular scale to the mesoscopic and even macroscopic scales. So TYC is a hub for cross-disciplinary research collaborations, and also world-class education in theoretical and computational materials and molecular science. The TYC directors are shown here. So at Imperial, we have Arash Mostofi, and also as a non-official director, Johannes Lischner, who is mostly in charge of events. At King's College London, we have Carla Molteni. At UCL, we have Jochen Blumberger and Alex Schluger. And at Queen Mary University London, we have Rachel Otero Crespo and Devis Di Tommaso. So if you have any questions about the TYC, any questions that are not covered in today's presentation and discussion, feel free to contact the TYC director of your institution. The TYC support staff is shown here. So we have Hafiza Bibi at Imperial and Karen Stoneham at UCL. You can see their email addresses. And again, feel free to contact Hafiza or Karen about anything that you might want to learn. If you want to learn more about the TYC, for example, the events that we're organizing, etc., feel free to contact either Hafiza or Karen. So you may be wondering about the name Thomas Young Center, right? So how did this come up? Well, it's named after Thomas Young, who was a polymath, right? The last man who knew everything. So you might have already seen the name Young in some of the equations that you have been taught in physics. For example, the Young's modulus or the Young-Laplace equation. He also pioneered the wave theory of light, right? So we have the Young's slits, the Young's equation in wetting, etc. So there are several contributions that range all over the knowledge domains of physics or medicine or even music and decoding the Rosetta Stone. He contributed articles to Encyclopedia Britannica, etc. He was a professor at the Royal Institution and also a medical practitioner. So you can see that he was really a polymath with contributions in several different scientific topics and fields. Okay, so yeah, in the TYC, as I mentioned, we are dealing with the simulation and theory of materials, and this is quite a broad area of research. So we have specific interest groups that are focusing on different topics. So one of these interest groups is the Functional Materials and Devices group, which deals with defects in materials, light-matter interactions, spectroscopy, transport, etc. So all of these topics that I outline here. We have an interest group in development of simulation methods, theoretical methods, that focuses on electronic structure methods, force field development, molecular dynamics methods, etc. So all the way from molecular methods up to macroscopic methods. For instance, we have these continuum and finite element modeling methods. and also, of course, informatics, right? So high throughput and materials informatics. The structural materials interest group is dealing with modeling the plasticity of materials, chemomechanics, tribology, all the way to these problems of polymers, elastomers, disordered materials, and also different materials like composites and metals. The surfaces, interfaces, and catalysis interest group focuses on nanostructured materials, electrochemistry, corrosion, solvation, and of course, catalysis. And finally, we have the soft and biological matter interest group, which focuses on biochemistry, biophysics, biomaterials, polymers, and statistical mechanics. Methods are used to model and simulate all of these materials. So I would strongly encourage you to join an interest group by filling out this form. I expect that we're going to share these slides, maybe, so you can click on that link, fill out the form. You don't have to restrict yourselves to only one interest group. You can be members of more than one, depending on your research topic and also your interest. Now, there are a lot of activities in the Thomas Young Center, and again, I would strongly encourage you to actively participate and maybe even organize some of these. So we have seminars and workshops, different types of these. So we have highlight seminars, for example, in which we invite top academics from around the world who do excellent research on the broad topics of materials modeling, specific topics within this area. We also organize national and international workshops, and we have symposia that are led by interest groups. We also have the student-led journal club, in which you would discuss a paper that either you published or something that is relevant to your research or something that really caught your attention. And this is a student-led discussion session, and this is quite beneficial, again, to participate in actively and interact, exchange ideas. And of course, we have local seminars at each one of the 4 institutions that comprise the Thomas Young Center. We also have a junior research fellowship scheme, which contributes up to £1,000 for incoming or outgoing research visits for PhD students or postdoctoral researchers to help build new collaborations. So if you're interested in visiting a group that may be doing some research which is relevant to your interests, or if you would like to invite somebody from a group outside of the TYC, from another country, for example, to come visit you and interact with them, etc., then you can consider applying for the Junior Research Fellowship. You can see this, you can visit this link, which has information and all the details about the application process. We also have this scheme of visiting professors to attract top academics to the Thomas Young Center. The visits can be from 1 week up to a month, and they would be required to deliver a series of either a masterclass or highlight seminars within the context of this visit. So again, these are really excellent events. You can visit this link to learn more about all of these different types of events. There is also a calendar, that a Google Calendar, that I would encourage you to subscribe to, so that you get all the latest information about all these excellent events that we are hosting at the TYC. In addition to research, we are also keen to provide excellent education. So we have this materials modeling course with a syllabus that includes modeling methods all the way from electrons up to the mesoscopic, macroscopic scales with statistical mechanics methods, etc. So the syllabus would include topics like density functional theory, molecular dynamics, enhanced sampling methods, kinetic Monte Carlo, nucleation, force fields, etc. Right? So you see all these phonons, excitations, quantum Monte Carlo, and high throughput calculations. The mode of delivery includes pre-recorded lectures and notes, slides that would be slides or notes that would be shared with you. So in the sessions, you can come with questions. These would be live tutorial sessions in which we would be discussing any of the topics of interest, and of course address your questions and provide more information or elaborate on a topic. So this happens, these tutorials are happening on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. on Zoom. You can have a look at this link for all the modeling, all the material that is provided in this modeling course. And again, I would encourage you to get in to attend this course, because many of these topics are going to be very useful for your research projects. And even if something is not useful right now, you may, down the road, when you continue your research, you may find out that you need a method that you don't know yet, you don't know the details of, but at least if you have attended the modeling course, you would be aware that this method exists, and then you can also talk to the person who introduced this method, get more details, and then finally apply it in your research. So it's an excellent opportunity to enhance your background and be aware of things, methodologies, and approaches that are beyond those directly related to your project. You also should be aware of the resources that are provided, computational resources. So we have access to these resources here, Tier 2 computational resources, through the MMM Hub. This is the Materials and Molecular Modeling Tier 2 Hub. So information about all the machines that are available to you and how to access them is provided in this link over here. So, of course, all of the simulations that we do, from, for example, TFT, molecular dynamics, etc., these cannot be done in my laptop, right? They require computing, supercomputing machines. So this would give you all the information necessary to access these excellent resources. So I would also like to introduce the website of the Thomas Young Center, right? This is the domain name, thomasyoungcenter.org. This is how the website looks like. We're going to launch a new and improved version of the website pretty soon. So it's already quite well established, right? So we have more than 40,000 visitors per year. We have several Twitter followers, more than 1,000. So I would encourage you to follow the Twitter feed of the TYC and also subscribe to the emailing list and keep in touch with all the updates. You can see some of the topics that I talked about, like events or the course that we offer would be under these tabs over here. So please subscribe to the emailing list, subscribe to the interest groups, and get involved, either with with seminars, the organization of seminars or events, or with a journal club, etc. There are plenty of opportunities, and this would be extremely beneficial to you and your fellow researchers. So with that, I would like to bring my presentation to a close. And next, we're going to have rapid fire talks from each of the 5 TYC interest group leaders. And after that, we're going to have a short presentation about the TYC mentoring scheme, followed by a Q&A with current TYC students. And finally, we're going to have some breakout discussions in smaller groups. Okay, so thank you. I don't know if we take any questions now, Karen, or should we wait until the Q&A session in the end?
We'll just crack on with the talks now. Thanks, Michail.
Okay, excellent. So I guess George will start.
George will start. Yeah, thanks,
introducing
George.
The interest group. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, great. So can people see my slides? You can see my
yes, I can see them,
but
it's
not full screen.
Mode.
Right. How do I do this again?
Slideshow.
I'm going to go back to this. I'm just going to do this. How does that look? Oh, How's that?
Yep, looks good.
Perfect.
Thanks, George.
Excellent. All right, great. Well, after the great introduction, I'm here to give a kind of lightning fast introduction to the methods group. So my name's George Booth, and I'm the lead of the methods interest group with the TYC. So, you know, if you take anything away, I would just encourage you to get involved with the methods interest group. You know, TYC is a sort of grassroots, bottom-up organization. So the more you put in, the more you'll get out. So don't feel afraid of getting involved in any kind of level of the hierarchy of the Thomas Young Centre. So I'm going first because my name is alphabetically first, but I believe there's a good argument as well that methods can be placed kind of at the centre of the TYC. So we're oh, have I lost? Hello? Okay. Yeah, well, you know, at the Thomas Young Centre, we're all doing methodological simulation that rely on the intrinsic methods that we're using. And so the argument for them being at the forefront is that even if you're not doing explicit methodological development in terms of maybe improving the efficiency of methods, bridging larger length scales or time scales, it's really important to be able to understand the methods that you're using, maybe see a new method, a new emerging method in the literature and want to understand more about it, how it might be able to be applied to your problem, and also understand the limitations of your own methodology that you're using for your individual problem. So they're absolutely key. And there are a huge number of groups within the TYC that do methodological development, maybe improving the efficiency of the methods that they're using, maybe broadening the scope so they can be applied to different problems, or increasing the intrinsic accuracy. So it has a huge impact. An example would be sort of linear scaling density functional theory, of which there's a large contingent of people in the TYC that work on, that really access completely new length scales, but also all the way up to kind of continuum methods for you know, applied engineering. So I, you know, was asked to give a kind of, you know, quick fire 3 kind of exciting developments in the domain of kind of new methodology in material science. And the first one I came up with was quantum computing. There's obviously a huge amount of buzz within quantum computing. This is and kind of often materials modeling or electronic structure problems is kind of cited as the killer app for near-term quantum computers. And that's really realizing Feynman's original aim of saying, hey, if we want to simulate quantum many-body systems, we better use a quantum many-body system to do that modeling. And that gets around this kind of curse of dimensionality. And so with that in mind, we had sort of Matthias Treuer, the head of Microsoft's quantum computing division, as a highlight speaker last year, and raised a lot of interesting questions. And a number of the groups in the TYC are working on kind of rethinking materials science and electronic structure problems for use on quantum computers. And indeed, there's a large amount of kind of industrial collaboration all the way through to new startup companies to more established companies, where the TYC is collaborating to kind of drive forward materials science with quantum devices. A lot of these companies, you know, they know the have I lost people again? I might have, but maybe they are missing the kind of domain expertise of really simulating and understanding quantum many-body systems, and that's where the TYC comes in. So a second example of something that's really permeating through the computational simulation of materials and molecular systems is machine learning. And this is the sort of general problem of dealing with high dimensionality, which is permeating through, you know, the whole of the physical sciences and beyond. And members of the TYC are using machine learning in a number of very exciting ways to build new methodology and be able to expand the scope of what we can tackle with simulation techniques. And that might be to take sort of descriptors from experimental sort of cheminformatic quantities, and then use those to do rational design of new materials such as thermoelectric materials, as shown here, or they might be designing force fields on which to do molecular dynamics at hugely accelerated rates and with much higher accuracy than possible before. Furthermore, there's a sort of a new area of applying machine learning directly to trying to solve the quantum many-body problem as well, where you're kind of interpolating through these exponentially large spaces. And finally, the other area of sort of exciting development, and certainly just, you know, this is leaving out a huge number of other examples, but just selecting 3, is techniques to deal with kind of material simulation that go beyond the kind of standard workhorse of density functional theory. And with this, you know, there are lots of exciting new ideas. We had another highlight seminar last year on new algorithms from Hardy Gross. And furthermore, this also includes sort of quantum embedding techniques that are explicitly multi-scale in their nature and how they're applied. And with that, I just want to do a shout out to this area. We've got a very exciting workshop coming up on December the 2nd, really specifically looking at predictive excitations beyond density functional theory. And these are the kind of world-class speakers at their respective universities that will be having along to that exciting workshop. So with that, I'd just like to thank you. I'm just to reiterate, the head of the materials, sorry, the methods interest group, and do tips on the directions that you see are important going forwards. Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks very much, George. So Clotilde is up next to do her brief talk. Thanks, Clotilde.
Yes, thank you. Is it, can you see my screen?
Yep, we can.
Okay, great. Okay, so hello everybody. My name is Clotilde Cucinotta, and I am the spokesperson of the interest group number 2, which focuses on surfaces, interfaces, catalysis, electrochemistry, and nanostructures. And essentially, interfaces and surfaces is where the action happens in a range of different technological processes. And here I have simplified some of them. So we can think about processes like catalysis or photo and electro catalysis, as occur in fuel cells, in electrolyzers, in batteries, in solar cells, or we can think about processes of charge transfer of relevance for nanoelectronics or molecular recognition, like in sensors, but also polymerization or corrosion, all corrosion processes that are so detrimental for our life, as well as processes involved in in the nanomedicine field, such as neurotransmission. And all these essential critical processes take place at the boundary between one medium and another. So interfaces and surfaces are essential to understand and improve these processes and materials. And in particular, we have a theoretical perspective on these, and we have to say that it is at the molecular level that many of these devices and processes operate to alter reaction barriers. And so an understanding of interface composition, electrode structure, and their evolution in operating conditions, which means under bias or when a current passes through the device, or electron transfer processes and dynamics underlying, let's say, photoelectrochemical excitation, or the modeling of the understanding of reactive processes at interfaces and pathways are all essential to enable new materials and to understand the processes. And especially relevant in this field is the connection, the integrated effort between experiment and theory, and as well as the connection with possible industrial stakeholders. Hot topics, just mentioned, just wrote down the first that came into my mind. So all the development of green technologies for, let's say, hydrogen production, but also energy storage and conversion is related, strictly related to energy, to surface interfaces. Photocatalysis, understanding of polaronic processes in catalytic nanoparticles, but also the design of novel battery concepts, as well as the design of biocompatible materials. All this is central to the team. And in particular, however, as theoreticians, we face a wide range of challenges, which sometimes derive from the need of obtaining, of optimizing macroscopic properties of the devices, of properties or processes that occur at these interfaces, and the simultaneous need to model electronic state and obtain accurate description of what happens. And so essentially in surface interface team, the problem of being able to describe multi-scale processes is particularly relevant, and many challenges are for theory. For instance, a Benitez simulation requires atomic or nanoscale to represent electronic states, or polarization and transformation at interfaces. And but many important dynamical processes at interface involve a component of ionic diffusion and take place over time and length scale that are many order of magnitudes larger. And materials behavior often depends on ensemble properties, so we need to perform molecular dynamic techniques, but fractal dynamics takes place on time scale of milliseconds, and at the same time ultra-fast electron dynamics take place on attosecond time scale. So we see that this is a wild multi-scale problem, the modeling of what processes that occur at interfaces, and we need really to be bold and compare different methodologies, use different methodologies, develop new methodologies to address the challenges. But it is anyway a very nice time to do this, because many different theory have reached a level of maturity that now enable really to do the next step. And for instance, as was mentioned by George, use of machine learning at the moment is very promising to enlarge the scale of what can be understood, yet maintaining accuracy. And so, in summary, the industrial perspective that essentially point at the cheapest and efficient technology, and the experimental challenge of expanding the number of observables that can be assessed and control their system, cooperate and pose challenges to the theorist. And you as a theorist, I would say you need to be bold, as I said. You need to invent new tools and borrow them from other fields, and don't be particularly excited by just one methodology or code, but just use them or develop them if you have a problem that has not been developed, have been solved before. And so you understand, so it is clear that therefore surface interfaces has a lot of overlap with other work packages, group. So questions for you. What are your thoughts about this topic? And do you see connections between different fields or insurmountable differences? What would you like to convey and possibly teach to your supervisor about this topic? Do you think it's important to add anything to your education to tackle the challenges of modeling surfaces and interfaces? If you have an interest in this field, please reflect on this and get involved. We are very open and we have a very interesting program of seminars and workshops. And that's it for my team. But actually, before concluding this, I would like to just highlight a slight different topic, and in particular, I would like to quickly introduce the theme of equality, difference, and inclusion of TYC. And as you know, TYC is committed to promoting equality, differences, a better balance between across different gender, ethnicity, culture, career stage contribution to science. And unfortunately, at the moment, we still are not there. The equation, I'm good, I shall succeed, unfortunately, because of issues that we still have as scientists, inequality, difference, and inclusion framework is still not always true. And so, one example of this, I don't know if you ever heard about the Leaky Pipeline. This is a concept which was specifically developed for describing the gender inequality, the fact that we lose women, they magically disappear from science because of different reasons, the way we still think, and the hidden bias that we still all have, male and females. And this is a general problem in general, but this the need to address equality and difference and inclusion in the way we approach to science. And the possible way to address this, and what is important for you, I think, so that you will don't face this kind of discrimination which is related by the overlooking these problems, is that you find a good supervisor or a good mentor who would help you really develop and progress, overcome the obstacles associated with the EDA. So a mentor who could, or a supervisor that could help you find funding or teach you how to write successful proposals, introduce to important professional contacts, provide constructive feedback on unsuccessful proposal, and in general, give you credit and advocate you in the academic community. And so if you don't have this, you should ask for this. You should be convinced that is your right to feel that you are not discriminated. And if you don't have from your mentor or supervisor, you should look somewhere else to progress, because this is essential for your development. It's not enough being good to succeed in science. And so to conclude this, I would like to ask you, what can we do, in your opinion, to counteract EDI issues? You will receive a short TYC EDI questionnaire, which will be distributed. It's just two questions to see if you would like to be involved in EDI activities, or if you feel that something should be done. And also, I warmly invite invite you to hear about our TYC mentoring scheme, which is coordinated by Dr. Monica Pozzo, who will talk at the end of the overview of the various interest group. So thanks, and that's all from my side.
Thank you, Clotilde. That was great.
Thanks.
Devis, if you could come to the stage.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, well, just let me start sharing my screen. Hopefully all will work. And now, can you see my PowerPoint presentation?
We can.
Yes.
Okay, well, good afternoon. My name is Devis Di Tommaso. I'm from Queen Mary. And well, first of all, I would like to thank the people that spoke with for me, especially Clotilde, that I think has highlighted an important issue in science, which is the one of gender equality. So thanks for that, Clotilde. So about IG5 structural materials. So I'm the spokesperson for this group, and the structural materials is material used that are studied primarily for their mechanical properties, and in particularly we're looking at methods that are used at the atomistic to continuum level to study these properties. But also we're considering topics that are at interface with other interest groups. So what I'm going to give you is just an overview of what type of soirees and highlights have been done in previous years, so you can have an idea of what sort of topics we cover. So previously to COVID-19, clearly things were done face-to-face. So we organized a few events that looked, for example, at what were the methods that have been developed to study materials such as cements, which are extremely complex materials, but have a great importance in our society. So we invited a couple of young but very successful scientists in this field, Caterina Ioannidou from Montpellier and MIT, and Tullio De Faria, that are currently working on multi-scale modeling of cements. And again, still in 2019, we invited Steven Fitzgerald from Leeds and Benna Verma from Birmingham, who gave us an overview of numerical simulation methods to describe dislocation dynamics, which is very important to study the mechanical properties of materials. We were also very lucky that we had an highlight from Professor Mike Brown from Cambridge, that in the words of Professor Sutton from Imperial, is a giant in the field of structural materials and has developed a model of work hardening, a phenomenon that has been described by Alan Cottrell as the most challenging problem in the whole of classical physics. So Professor Brown gave a highlight, I think it was in Imperial, and he showed his very nice and elegant model called the sandpile model. In this framework, a metal under load, it can be considered as a sort of like grains of sand that flow and impeding one another during this process. And so that was previously to COVID-19. In 2020, 2021, we moved to online presentations. So we organized a soiree on machine learning applied to chemical processes, and invited a few people that are doing excellent work in this field. Pavel Dra from Xiamen University, that develops machine learning models for potential analysis surfaces. Theodore Laine for IBM, who is developing techniques to learn the language of organic chemistry and therefore try to help the synthesis of new organic molecules. And Luca Gringari from FHI, who is one of the main developers of the NOMAD project to guide the synthesis of new material using machine learning techniques. So if you want to have a look at these talks, you can go to the Thomasian Center YouTube channel, and this code as well as others are available there. So also we are very lucky that we had a talk from Professor Davis Rolowitz from Hong Kong University, one of the most highly cited material scientists in the world, and he gave a talk on allotropy and high-strain materials, where he showed the theoretical and computational studies that he's been developing over the years to study the structural property formation evolution of solid-state materials on the continuum, microstructural, atomistic, and electronic scales. And so what also we are planning now, we are planning to do a soiree on CO2 mineralization. Clearly, you're all well aware of the issue with CO2. And one of the techniques that they are constantly considering is to try to transform CO2 to added value materials, such as minerals, such as magnesium carbonate, calcium carbonate. So we've invited a couple of people that are working in this field. Mariette Waters from Utrecht, who's a geochemist who is making very intelligent use of atomistic simulation to reparameterize geochemical models. And Paolo Rettieri was probably an expert in the field of free energy methods for molecular dynamic simulations to study process of nucleation and growth, to study mineral formation, which is clearly very relevant to understand what are the steps involved in the transformation with CO2 to minerals, and therefore store CO2 into added value chemicals. If you want to get involved, please do so. You can contact me by email, or you can just give me a call. I'm based at Queen Mary University. And with that, I would like to thank you, and I'm clearly will be happy to answer your questions during at the end of this session. And I will stop presenting now, so I think now is Martijn after me.
Sorry, I'm going to share my screen 1 second. Actually,
Sorry for the delay. My laptop is being extremely slow. Martijn will be speaking next. Thanks, Martijn.
yeah, but can we let Edina go first? Because actually I have an issue with Chrome, it seems, so bear with me for a second. I have to go out and go in.
Perhaps we could read it completely. If Monica is ready to share her screen, we could get Monica up first, and then Martijn, and then Edina, if that's okay.
Okay, Karen, I try to share it now.
Thanks, Monica.
Let's see. Window, PowerPoint. Right. Okay, Monica, can you all see my window?
We can. So Monica's going to talk to us about the TYC Mentoring Scheme, which has been rolled out initially at UCL, but Monica will talk more about that now for us.
Thank you, Karen. So good afternoon, everyone. I just would like to say a few words about the TYC Mentoring Scheme for female researchers that I developed and launched at UCL early this year. This is just the beginning. TYC would like to see something like this developed in all the 4 colleges. The TYC Mentoring Scheme is meant to complement and support the work of your supervisors. It aims to help you deal with some common issues that you may encounter during your PhD and postdoctoral research. So, if you need tips and strategies for a better project planning and time management, if English is not your first language, if you would like to find a work-life balance, learn how to stay focused and maximize your productivity, have a positive attitude, and master an effective communication, or you would simply know more about working in a team and about different learning styles, then you should consider joining the TYC Mentoring Scheme. How does it work? Well, we start with a friendly icebreaker session via Teams in groups of 6 people maximum. And the aim of the icebreaker is to get to know each other. It is a great opportunity for you to share your feelings and expectations about having a mentor, and for me to detect some common issues which may prevent you from reaching your goals. Then I organize individual team calls to discuss things in more detail. And this helps me find you the most suitable mentor. Your appointed mentor then gets in touch with you to agree on your mentoring schedule. I then present a couple of interactive PowerPoint presentations covering the issues identified during the icebreaker, followed by a couple of interactive sessions about teamwork and learning styles. I then leave you with your individual mentor, but I follow up all of you with the occasional email to check how you are doing. And in addition, at the end of the mentoring schedule, I also invite you to an in-person group coffee meetup, and then I facilitate future regular group meetups. And you will have also the opportunity to join informal discussion with the female academics about the personal experiences of female researchers through their various career paths. So I have now organized the mentoring group for 2021-2022. If you are interested, but you have not been contacted yet, there is still time for you to join. I will organize the next group at UCL probably in spring. So just send me an email at the address m.pozzo@ucl.ac.uk if you would like to join in, or if you simply would like to ask me any questions about our TYC mentoring scheme. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Monica.
I stop sharing.
Do you want to have another go, Martijn?
Yep, I'll have another go.
Just while you're doing that, I'll point out that the interest group leads will be available at the end of the session when we have the networking in the lounge area at the table. So each table is themed to match each interest group. So we've got one of our PhD panel representatives on those tables, and each of our interest group leads. So any questions that you've come up with during the talks, you can just go along and have a chat with those guys there and express your interest to join. Anyway, I'll hand over to Martijn now, because that did work for a minute then.
Yeah, it worked for a minute and then it stopped again. So let me try to do it again.
You're not having the best of luck today. Do you know, you wouldn't believe that we held a 2-day 60 speaker event on Emmy and it went so smoothly. This couldn't have been further from it. I do apologise to everybody, but thanks for sticking with us.
Okay, I think it now might be working.
Brilliant. Yes, perfect. Thanks, Martijn.
Cool. Thank you, Karen. Yes, my name is Professor Martijn Zwijnenberg from UCL, and I am the spokesperson for the Functional Materials Interest Group of the TYC. My contact details are there if you want to get in touch with me. So what are functional materials? Well, they're defined as materials that can perform a specific function or specific functions other than purely being of mechanical interest and possessing a load-bearing capacity. So this is where we differ from the theme that Devis just mentioned. And I was briefly going to talk to you a little bit about the theme. I'm only going to take a couple of slides. Does this work? Yep. Okay, so what are the sort of functions of functional materials that we're interested in our interest group? Well, things like semiconducting or conducting behavior materials, the fact that materials can absorb or emit light, magnetic properties of materials, dielectric properties, piezoelectricity, pyroelectricity, the fact that materials can have the ability for them to conduct ions and the ability to intercalate ions. And these properties, while of interest on their own, for their own merit, they're also very relevant to practical applications. For example, the semiconducting behavior of materials is exploited in transistors in your conventional computer, qubits in the future quantum computers that George already alluded to or touched upon briefly, but also things like thermoelectric ways of generating, converting waste heat into electricity. Absorption and emission of light is obviously relevant for solar cells and LEDs, magnetism in the hard disks of computers, dielectric properties at the gate dielectric of transistors, piezo and pyroelectricity, find application is useful for the materials that possess those properties, find application in sensors and actuators. Obviously, the ability for solid state ion conduction is important in batteries, in so-called solid state, I can't think of the word, solid state conduction is very important for batteries, and also the ability to intercalate ions obviously is a key thing in batteries. And this is some examples of why, I mean, there's an enormous range in functional materials that are studied within the TYC and that are studied as part of our interest group, but here's some topical examples. So on the left, you see an example of a so-called hybrid perovskite, which is a very topical material in the case of in solar cells. In the middle, you see a very small transistor, which is basically made of a 2D material, in this case, molybdenum sulfide. And on the right is an illustration of batteries. There's an enormous amount of work in batteries. I'm not going to bore you with all the sort of all studies that I've done, but it's a really happening interest group. And I just want to finish with highlighting one particular upcoming event that we're organizing, which is also very topical, and that's this event on modeling materials for quantum technology. So basically modeling materials that, for example, can be used in quantum computers, but also in other so-called quantum technologies. We have 3 high-profile speakers, 2 from outside the TYC, outside the UK. That is Professor Adam Galli from Hungary, and Dr. Adis Alsakis from Lithuania, and it's coupled with together with Professor Andrew Fisher, who is from UCL Physics and the London Center for Nanotechnology. This is an event that's taking place on the 10th of February 2022, and I hope to see you all there. We'll also be organizing some other activities which we'll advertise on the TYC website and by email. So yeah, if you're interested in functional materials, if you're working on modeling anything from transistors to batteries, and from solar cells to thermoelectrics, please join our interest group and attend our activities. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Martijn. Edina, are you okay to share your screen or just come up to the stage?
Right. Can you hear me and see me?
We can. We can hear you. Yes, we can.
You can hear me? Okay.
Yes.
That's working. Excellent. So let me share my screen. And hopefully it will work. And let me just start the presentation mode to check if it's working. Is it
good?
It
is, yeah.
Excellent. So I'd just like to introduce myself. So I'm Edina Rosta, I'm at UCL, and I'm the interest group lead on soft and biological matter. And I've just recently taken over this post from Andela Saric, who is leaving UCL soon. So I don't have a lot of background information on the past events, but there have been a lot of events, including one of the first speaker who ever presented at the TYC meetings, Michele Parinello, and we are going to have an event coming up very soon where he's actually going to be speaking again. for the anniversary of TYC. And so I would like to say a few things about research that we are doing, for example, research in my group, just to give you a bit of examples of what kind of topics could be covered in the future. And I would really like to actually ask everyone, if you are interested in this group, then please send me an email and maybe sign up for this interest group, because we really don't have a lot of members at this time. So it would be wonderful to have more people being involved in this interest group. And then maybe you could suggest speakers. So it would be great if we could invite them either in person in the future or online, whichever is possible. And so it would be really great if you would sign up and you would suggest speakers. So some of the research that, for example, we are doing is looking at structures of proteins. And in particular, in my group, we care about phosphates, and phosphates are really the building blocks for basically all biological processes. And for example, in reproduction, we have DNA or RNA synthesis and hydrolysis. Then we have energy storage and transfer. We have this ATP-ADP equilibrium that provides energy for cells, driving these molecular machines like our muscle proteins. And then in signaling, we have the very important processes of phosphorylating proteins at different sites. And when things go wrong, then we have really very serious diseases like cancer. So these kind of signaling processes are very, very important. And we also have in metabolism, very often ATP is used to help activate chemical processes to make some of these molecules in biosynthetic pathways. So this is about enzyme, mainly about enzyme reactions. And if you have something related to this, then you're very welcome to join the TYC. We also look at how proteins can assemble and what kind of diseases can happen when actually you have this assembly, which is unneeded. And so here we have a lot of interesting speakers already from the past, and some new speakers coming up, looking at aggregation. And just in general, not just aggregation, we also look at protein-protein interactions. And here we have some people, for example, at King's. We have people working on protein-protein interactions and different networks that looking at this. And also not just protein-protein interactions, but also smaller ligands and protein interactions. So for example, one of the big questions is, how could we model ligand unbinding? And there are a number of people, for example, Francesco Gervasio, who is also at UCL, who is working on this problem. We have been working on this problem. So there are a number of very important questions related to these questions of protein-protein interactions and ligand-protein binding, and in particular, kinetics of these type of processes. And in our example, we also work with a lot of experimental groups, and here just some examples of from our research, where really working closely with the crystallographers and with people at the creek really can enhance our modeling. One connection is also to the methods, and I think many people already mentioned machine learning. And so some of the things that we are also looking at is how could we use machine learning to be able to help sample the different conformations that these proteins can take. And so we look at how AI can assist in this discovery of collective variables. This is one of the interesting things that we are trying to understand now, and there is a number of people working on this already. So please suggest speakers if you would like to see them to come here. This is again just, I just wanted to maybe, don't want to talk too much about the research, but what I wanted to say that we will have very shortly an upcoming event where we invited Davide Marenduso, and he's going to come and give a presentation soon. So you should be seeing this at the TYC events coming up in a month or so. So I think, and basically what I would really like to ask is please sign up and please get in touch with me. And if you have any questions or if you would like to contribute in any way, that would be most welcome, because we really need, I think, members in our interest.